action and tell us the story, or what this person's name is, how old is he, what organization is he serving, and how do they work, how does it help, who are they serving. So that's all we need. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, and just to go back to your mission statement, breaking those stereotypes. Too many times, I mean, we've already spoke about it on this podcast alone about how this is affecting everybody, no matter what hierarchical structure you're in. You can't escape it if it's coming for you. There's it doesn't discriminate, and showing all of these places that are suffering and the people who are still striving to help out those people, you can relate. And I really like the fact that whole just breaking stereotypes alone, because people have such a closed-minded view of the world when there is, just because I always say this, I say, people aren't concerned with a problem unless it affects them directly. And right now, this thing is affecting everybody directly. So we have no choice but to open our eyes and see, and breaking stereotypes alone is a perfect example of, hey,
Correct.
we're all seeing it.
Correct. And it's really unfortunate that amid this pandemic, it's supposed to bring us closer together, to appreciate one another more, but we also see a lot of racism that came out of it, and the stereotype as well. I mean, me being Chinese, I don't think I feel really safe in the West, because it's called the China virus, Chinese virus, which is, it's not cool.
No,
it's not cool, and it's not helping anyone by blaming it to an ethnicity, putting the blame on one ethnicity for spreading the virus. It's a collective suffering. So this project itself is also very dear to our hearts, that us being Asian, to see the good in everybody else, rather than trying to pinpoint the problem on one country, one ethnicity, that everybody sees it as a collective problem that they want to contribute and serve and try to solve together.
Yeah, it's gotten too politicized. It's it's the blame game. You have people, calling it the Chinese virus, and it's like, why does it matter at this point? Why does it matter where it came from? Right now, what matters is everybody is at risk, and it's affecting. It's a global pandemic.
Correct.
Blaming people and highlighting that blame isn't moving that ball any more forward, or helping progress anything positive. If anything, like you just shared, it's creating another stereotype and making people judge a certain ethnic race that it doesn't help at all.
Correct. And then so what if let's say it came from China, and then what if China came up with a vaccine first? Are you not going to use it?
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't matter where it came from. What matters is that it works.
Yeah, we have a whole organization that works with the whole world to come up with vaccines and counter combating pandemics like this, and keeping things like this at bay. So what does it matter where it came from, as long as we come together to make it work?
Yeah, I agree, definitely agree. And just to dive a little bit more about why this project is important, and it's important for people to take part in, because this is I see a lot of media like to use this phrase called unprecedented times, which is true. We are at unprecedented times, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to just sit back and watch this whole thing without participating? 10 years, 20 years down the road, and your child asks you, what happened during the pandemic? What did you do? We read it in history books that, things were really tough, and there are great people doing great things to save the world. What are you doing? Right? So I think the other 100 is also a way to give photographers or even people in the arts an outlet to participate in unprecedented times. You know, you were part of something through your profession, documenting it. So that's your role in history.
Yeah, exactly. And that you put that perfectly because, like you said, some people don't know what to do, and even if it's highlighting somebody else, because things on the internet tend to live forever. So if I'm sure by then, when your kids are learning about the corona, the pandemic in 2020 in school, everything's going to be on a computer. They're going to be able to see the other 100, or certain people, just small acts that show humanity really did come together in certain areas of the world, no matter how big or how small those people, did those things. So
Yeah. And apart from pictures, this project will also have a lot of research behind each country's research into quirky facts that's going to get people interested in learning more about the place. Research about how they did well in their public health policy. So this is going to be a free to access open source on the internet in the future when we put this together for policymakers, for NGOs, for anyone to look at it and see creative solutions in dealing with the problem, and so that they can get prepared to face the next one. We're pretty certain that's going to be a next one. We're just not sure when. So
yeah, it's almost inevitable at this point.
Correct. If we keep degrading the environment, so it's gonna come for us again. So this is going to be an open source for people to refer to learn from each other, to say that, okay, if I'm sitting in the U.S. and someone else in, let's say, Nigeria has a really simple, low-tech solution to a problem, and it's so effective, what's stopping you from adopting and learning from them? So this is a way for us to facilitate that kind of interaction, that flow of wisdom between different countries.
And at that point, it becomes so much more than just a feel-good story. It becomes an access to information that can help future generations, or when you have a remote country or something that, like you said, something like this is going to happen again. And we have a little booklet that shows us, hey, this is how we can solve some of the problems in these underserved areas.
Yeah. And back then, I remember there was a story, a picture of a couple of guys on the train tracks in India and Pakistan, I think. And one of the readers' feedback to us was like, oh, I find that story really interesting. And I actually went and Googled to see how long the train tracks is, and I get to see the map of Pakistan. I've never thought I'll be intrigued or interested to learn about a country so much that I bought a book to read about Pakistan. So that's the kind of story that really gives us, the morale boost of why are we doing this project. So long as we can inspire someone to look further than their own borders, that's enough.
Yeah, you guys are planting seeds of information and just setting off these chain reactions where people, just like that story you just shared. It's like, hey, train tracks. Oh, how long? Oh, wow, I'm looking at the geography of Pakistan now, and
you kind of just lead people down the rabbit hole, into Wikipedia and everything. Yeah. And for me as a project manager and the team as well, we learn so much because we are looking at the list of countries. Like, I have no idea where this country is. I've never heard of it. So let me go look it up in Google Maps. Like, okay. Yeah. So in the process, we are learning so much. Like when we were searching for countries in the Pacific Island, and we got in touch with some of the photographers, they told us that, well, we don't have much cases here because we're so isolated. So long as we seal the borders and there's no imported cases, we're fine. But because those islands are they rely heavily on tourism. And once you seal off the borders, nobody's visiting the hotels. Nobody's coming to the beaches or coming to the
Nobody's
bars.
making money.
Correct. So they suffer a loss of livelihood. But what are they going to do about it? So you have stories about people from the hospitality sector still willing to serve people who are stuck there. Tourists who are stuck in that island, they shut down the entire hotel, but there's 2 guests who has nowhere to go because they're tourists. But yeah, they're allowed to stay in the hotel. The restaurants continue to operate to serve them. So that is a form of service as well. Rather than just kicking them out and say bye-bye, hotel's
Yeah,
closed.
you're on your own.
Yeah, so that's the kind of, then you learn about, oh, okay, so the Pacific islands are not affected by the virus, but more like because people are not visiting the hotels, the tourism sector is suffering.
Yeah, there's different places that are being, even if they're not directly affected by the virus itself, they're affected in other ways, and
Yeah, and
just
then
having
you
to deal
start to appreciate
with those
that
things.
everyone suffers in different ways, and there's really not much difference between you and I.
No, not at all. No matter how much the people try to make it seem, there really isn't. And like going back to the other 100, if you look at those pictures and you read those articles, you can relate to so many of those people and places. Like you said, I mean, I was looking at some of the links that you sent me, and I'm like, where's this place? Kind of just the exact same thing. Like, oh, that's oh, okay, cool. It sounds Indian. I didn't know about that. Oh, this is a thing too. I didn't know that was a thing. And it's just,
Yeah.
you're educating yourself even more and opening up, broadening your horizons, and you, like you said, there's not much difference between us. We're all dealing with it in our own little ways, and some people worse than others. So it also gives you a little bit of perspective on how grateful you should be in your own position, depending on who you are.
Correct, and the power of images is that's what I'm talking about. The power of images is able to leave that kind of imprint in you, to that people can be racist, people can stereotype someone else without even actually knowing much. That's where it starts from. It's ignorance about someone else.
Prejudging.
Yeah, and you, so long as you're starting to see the pictures, oh, this is how they live, oh, this is how their daily lives look like, how do they go about going to school, how do they go to work, how do they make a living, things are so tough there, but this is how they live. And then, yeah, like you said, we should feel blessed that we have the resources, right? But at the same time, you have so much admiration for those people, for people who have less, that they persevere, they have that kind of resilience in tough situations as well.
Yeah, for sure. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about how this developed. How did the other 100? I know you guys were talking about the guy who founded it, and saying that there's the Forbes 100 list and stuff like that. But how did this evolve into what it is today? Was it immediately that idea, or how did you guys come around to? Did you guys have like a think tank?
Yeah. I think the idea, the ethos is always to break stereotype and to highlight the good work other people are doing, the other 100. And how we got to the theme of the other 100 healers is definitely because of the pandemic. Before that, I think there was another edition that was in the planning, but it got scrapped. It's the other 100 migrant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that one is quite interesting. It can be stories about migrant workers, how they are the invisible contributors behind, it can be a food supply chain, it can be the construction industry. Those people building, laying bricks in your country may not be your own countrymen, but they are the people who's building your country. So
especially in America.
Yeah, so I think it's also a brainstorming session among the team to see what is going to be an important issue we want to highlight, and also shed some light and find positivity in it. So the other 100 healers is definitely because